This is Boxing with Mannix and Mora. I'm Chris Mannix. He is the former junior middleweight champion, Sergio the Latin Snake Mora. And Sergio, it is our last show of 2024. The last show of the first year of Boxing with Mannix and Mora, at least the first few months of this program. Are you happy to be a full-time member of this podcast as we close out 2024?
Well, I'm happy to be consistently getting the highest ratings for our show now, Chris Mannix, and we're gonna end it with an award that we're gonna win soon. I know we are because you know what? I always win awards. Wherever I go, I just win awards. That's just the way it goes. So stay ready, be ready.
Yeah, worst fight of the year, most disappointing business decision of the year. You know, if they had a Razzie Awards for boxing, you would be in the running every single year. There's no doubt about that. We are going to talk some awards, though. We're going to hand out our own awards this year. Fighter of the Year, Prospect of the Year, Knockout of the Year. And we do this, of course, with all due respect to the fact that we do have a pretty good fight coming up on New Year's Eve over in Japan. You know, if people don't know, Japan has big fights on New Year's Eve every year. This year is no different. Kazuto Ioka is going to defend his 115-pound title in a rematch against Puma Martinez. So that is a big fight. It's a potential opponent for Bam Rodriguez next year. So, if something big comes out of that, we will talk about that next week. We're going to talk about the year that was, though, up until December 30th in terms of awards, best fights, best wins, all that kind of stuff. So I do want to start there with the Fighter of the Year, Sergio, which I don't think is going to be controversial at all. My pick for Fighter of the Year is the incomparable Alexander Usyk, who had 2 wins this year, both against Tyson Fury, one for the undisputed heavyweight championship, the other for the lineal/unified heavyweight championship because one belt went away because of the sanctioning bodies. But I don't think it's really close, Sergio. Usyk beat the number one guy that was considered the number one guy in the heavyweight division, and he beat him twice. I think Daniel Dubois has a good case to be the runner-up. Bam Rodriguez probably has a decent case to be in that top 3. But for me, this was the year of Alexander Usyk. What do you say?
It was the year of Usyk the Great. Absolutely. And it was all eyes on the heavyweights. You know, Tyson Fury was unbeaten. That's what you want to see in the heavyweight division. 2 of the absolute best, number 1 and number 2, undefeated, fighting for all the belts. I mean, that's boxing right there. That's what we've been waiting for for such a long time, you know, because there's such a it's so difficult to get all sanctioning bodies at the same time to fight for all 4 belts. So for Usyk and Fury to do that on the big stage, and not only that, it was in Riyadh, you know, where it wasn't in Vegas, it wasn't in the UK, it wasn't in a huge arena, it was in a different, you know, exotic location, you know. That's what I think is going to be memorable whenever you look at this fight, you know, 5, 10, 15 years from now, where it was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, you know, a Brit and a Ukrainian going at it for who's the number 1 baddest man on the planet. I mean, it couldn't be any better. And the fact that you know, Usyk did what he did in such a competitive fight, because that 9th round swayed things, you know, swayed things. So it was just overall, man, Usyk the Great, number 1 fighter, fight of the year.
Yeah, and I think Usyk's career is going to age really well. And his career is not close to being over, if you believe him. He thinks he's going to fight many more times, even at 37 years old, before he hangs up his gloves. This is a guy that really, from the very beginning, has been a boxing road warrior. You mentioned that fight and those fights being in Riyadh, but even before that, the World Boxing Super Series, going to Russia to fight Murat Gassiev, going to Latvia to fight Marius Briedis, going to the UK to fight Derek Chisora and Anthony Joshua. This is not a guy that wins by a lot of knockouts, Sergio. This is not someone that has that eraser. This is a guy that wins a lot of decisions. And to go into the home territory of so many fighters and come away with decisions, I think is really impressive.
No, what's really impressive is the fact that, you know, he's able to beat guys back to back like Anthony Joshua, back to get back against Tyson Fury, and even knocking out Daniel Dubois, Chris Mannix. That fight aged well because now Dubois is a world champion. So he's beating the absolute best on their home turfs. And if the first time wasn't good enough, it was a close fight. Guess what? I'm gonna give you the rematch, and I'm gonna do it again, and I'm gonna solidify that victory. So he leaves no doubt. He leaves no doubt. Usyk is doing something that a lot of fighters avoid doing, and that's going into the champion's hometown. They want everything on their favor in the contract. Not Usyk, man. He puts up his own belt. He puts up, his own undefeated record, and he goes wherever the fans demand him to fight. So that's the reason I think he deserves Fighter of the Year. I think it's hands down everyone all across. It's unanimous. It should be at least unanimous. Usyk is Fighter of the Year.
Yeah, all respect to the year that Danny Dubois had, which was impressive. Beating Filip Hrgovic, beating Anthony Joshua, both wins coming by knockout, both wins coming with him as an underdog going into those fights. Phenomenal year. Bam Rodriguez, too, added another legend to his resume in Gallo Estrada, but this was the year of Alexander Usyk, no question about that. Okay, let's go with the knockout of the year, because I think this one, Sergio, is going to be a lot more competitive. I'll let you go first because there are a handful of nominees that I considered before making my decision. What do you got?
Well, look, I like to weigh things whenever you're choosing like the best category of the year. So knockout of the year, of course, there's a lot of undercards and up and comers and prospects and even a champion and a former champion. But I want to do it on the championship level. What was the knockout of the year for me? It was Bam Rodriguez, Gallo Estrada. Because one, you know how hard is it to knock out a guy that's never been knocked out, and a legend and a star like Gallo, and a unification, but to the body, man. It reminded me of when Roy Jones Jr. knocked out, Virgil Hill with that body shot, which I think was knockout of the year back then, but I forget. Either way, I think this is what is knockout of the year because it's so hard to do what he did. And not only that, the way Bam Rodriguez strutted around the ring while Gallo was in pain on the floor, like he was Maximus in Gladiator, just walking around like, yeah, this is me. Before the 10 count, it was just perfect, man, with a little smirk on his face. Bam Rodriguez, knockout of the year.
Yeah, I certainly was impressed by that. We both called that fight, months ago. And to do it against a legend like Gallo, to do it with a body shot, I agree with you. That was a special moment. That was outside of my top two, though. I'm going to tell you how I came to this decision. The runner-up for me was the Lucas Body Ashton Silva knockout. If you remember that on the MVP card, Ashton Silva, a rising prospect, a lot of hype behind him, plans to face Floyd Schofield before the end of 2024. All that was derailed when Lucas Body just put him down and out. That was one of those knockouts that you don't see very often, the face-first kind of knockouts. It reminded me a little bit of the Paul Williams against Sergio Martinez knockout from many years ago when a guy is just down and out. I think Vladimir Klitschko had one against Calvin Brock many years ago. Those kind of knockouts just stick with you. They stick in your memory because they're really special. And for Lucas Body, who was a complete unknown going into that fight, to score that particular type of knockout was really remarkable and changed the trajectory of his career. He wound up fighting another MVP card later in the year. It is now a legitimate guy at 135 pounds. That was the runner-up for me. The knockout of the year, though, Sergio, on my list is Dubois against AJ, because I factored in the level that fight was on, right? Like that was a heavyweight championship fight between both guys, fairly evenly matched. Both guys who have had their downs, but were now on kind of an upswing. You had AJ winning 3 fights in a row since those losses to Usyk. Dubois had completely changed the trajectory of his career with the wins over Jarrell Miller and Filip Hrgovic. Yes, up until that point, that last round, Dubois was dominating, right? He had knocked AJ down a couple of times, and it seemed like only a matter of time before he eventually got to him. But there was that sequence before the knockout punch where it looked like AJ was going to shock the world, right? He backed Dubois up with a straight right hand. He was coming in looking for that big knockout punch, the kill shot, and then Usyk with a counter right hand from hell just throws that counter shot, hits AJ, and AJ does another one of those face-first type knockouts that are legit. So the fact that Dubois did it on that stage for a heavyweight title against an opponent like Anthony Joshua, that to me just put it a slight level above the one you mentioned, Bam and Gallo, the one I mentioned before, the Lucas Body knockout. Several others, are certainly worthy to be considered on that list. But the magnitude of the moment, sold out Wembley Stadium, pressure on Dubois, AJ charging in, and then bam, just a straight right hand out of nowhere. That to me was special, Sergio. That to me was the best knockout of the year.
Look, the Lucas Body one, I haven't even seen it. I'll be honest with you. The MVP, I don't watch those shows, and I haven't
It's
seen it.
everywhere.
I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's going to be one of these, highlight reels. But it's against an up and comer, a prospect. Guys like these get knocked out on the way up because they're not the goods. But when you do it on the championship level, when you've proved to be the goods, and when it comes to AJ, yeah, that was my top. That was my second one. I debated whether that should be my knockout of the year, but I didn't because they both been knocked out before. So it's happened before. We've seen AJ get knocked out. We've seen Dubois get knocked out before. So they're both fragile heavyweights. They both of them could, they had a fight. They had to fight the reputation of being quitters. So we knew there was only a matter of time for them to get knocked out again. Yes, was it exciting? The heavyweights is always sexy to get knocked out, especially when it's faced first in a legendary arena. I get it, but I still have to give credit where credit's due to fighters that are the championship level and they've never been knocked out. So when that happens, that's when you have to, give all credit there because you're doing it for the first time. No one's ever seen Gallo Estrada get knocked out by a young up and comer and Bam Rodriguez into the body, and the way he was withering in pain. All that stands to me. All that just screams knockout of the year.
All right. Both high level knockouts. No argument for me for anyone that takes either one of them. All right. Let's talk about the prospect of the year because this is another race that I think is going to be pretty competitive. And for me, Sergio, 2 weeks ago, the prospect of the year was sewn up in my book. I was ready to hand the hardware to Abdullah Mason, 135-pound prospect over with Top Rank, 5-0 in 2024. Yes, had a hiccup in his last fight where he was knocked down twice in the first round, but was later got up, knocked his opponent out in the second round of that fight. He looks like the goods. 5 fights, 5 wins, all coming by knockout. Big, long, rangy kid from Ohio. He's got a ton of skill, ton of power. I thought he was a lock for prospect of the year. But then I watched the show on December 21st. I watched the co-main event on December 21st. And I saw Moses Atauma do to Dempsey McKeon what I never expected him to do, dropping and knocking out Dempsey McKeon in the first round of that fight. This is a guy in Dempsey McKeon who had gone close to the distance with Filip Hrgović earlier. Was it early in the year or last year? He had been a durable guy against the top-level opponent, but Moses Atauma just mowed him down. If you look at his resume, 4 wins in 2024, all by knockout. The last 2 have come against relatively durable guys. Marius Walk, yeah, he's way past the twilight of his career, but he's been durable and gone the distance against a lot of good fighters. He lasted less than 2 rounds. And you have Dempsey McKeon, who had been a credible guy. He doesn't get out of the first round. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and call Moses Atauma the next big thing, but to me, his 2024 and the way he ended it with that knockout against Dempsey McKeon, that to me locks him in for prospect of the year. What do you say?
And he's only 19 years old. Yes, I agree with you. Moses Atauma, prospect of the year because, 4 fights in 2024 and 2 of them in the first round knockout, the other 2 in the second round. This guy doesn't get paid for overtime. Atauma is definitely, getting a lot of recognition in the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division is loaded with these 6'5", 6'6" monsters. He's not there. He's 6'2", 6'2.5" maybe, but he does it with power. He does it with speed, with timing, with footwork. The footwork is what's going to be special with him. And he's a southpaw. He has a mean left hand, man. Atauma has a wicked left hand. So I think he's going to be special. I think he will be a heavyweight champion. I don't know if he beats Mike Tyson's record as the youngest to do it, but I think he'll be in his early 20s when he wins a world championship and when these belts fracture away from Usyk's hands. Atauma's special, and he has a special trainer in his corner, Embed Davison. I think he has a great promoter. I think everything's there for him to be the next great thing. And I think fans know it. fans are hungry for it. And what he did in Riyadh and what he's been doing this year, he's a special talent and a future champion.
What separates the Talma for me is that hand speed. Like you said, he doesn't have superior size, but Usyk has shown that you don't need size to compete against some of these bigger fighters at heavyweight if you have a different level of skill. And Talma, look, I'll defer to you on his footwork. I'm sure it's good. I think his hand speed is rare for a heavyweight. Like, he puts together punches in blurring combinations. It's remarkable. And for a guy that size to have that kind of hand speed, it's just not the kind of thing you see much in heavyweight boxing. I'm really excited to see what his promoters, what Ben Davison do with him in 2025. Like you said, he's made it clear that he wants to be a heavyweight champion faster than Mike Tyson. I don't think that's how it's going to go. And Ben Davison has preached patience with the Talma. And I think they are taking him down the right path here, putting him up against guys like Walk, putting up against guys like McKeon, getting him exposure. I'd love to see him in with one of those B-level ex-champions maybe in the first quarter of 2025. I think that's the next phase of his development, but he's a standout, man. He's special, and his talent level and what he can do in terms of hand speed is really something to see. All right, let's finish on our awards with the fight of the year. And again, this was another category where I think there's a lot of worthy contenders. I'll let you take the floor first. What fight was the Sergio Mora fight of the year?
Has to be Usyk Fury. I mean, two undefeated fighters fighting for undisputed, and that round 9 sticks in everyone's mind. I mean, that's what you want to remember. That round 9 where you had Tyson Fury, the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, teetering from pillar to post, being hurt. Is he going to go down? Is he going to go through the ropes? I mean, that's drama. That's drama on the biggest stage possible. The two baddest men on the planet. That has to be fight of the year. I mean, not only did we get fighter of the year with Alexander Usyk, but the fact that fight, if it wasn't for the 9th round, Fury may have won. So that was a deciding factor. So it was dramatic. It was skillful. Everyone wanted to watch a rematch, and we got the rematch. But yeah, that has to be it. And it was for the heavyweight championship of the world as well. So the two big men, they're always going to get the extra eyeballs on them because, it's a heavyweight championship boxing. But the way they did it with the skill, the footwork, the courage, the bravery, the drama, that has to be it for me.
So I really wanted to go with the 126-pound title fight between Raymond Ford and Otabek Kolmatov.
That was a wicked fight.
Because that had a little bit of everything. You had Raymond Ford looking like he was in some trouble early on, having a game plan that really wasn't working, kind of boxing off the back foot and just trying to outmaneuver Kolmatov. And then in the final few rounds, just stepping on the front foot and taking over and doing something that we hadn't really seen from Raymond Ford in his young career. And stopping a guy like that. I mean, Kolmatov was kind of a boogeyman, when Raymond Ford said yes to that fight. Nobody really wanted to fight that guy. Ford comes over, crosses the promotional aisle, does a deal with Top Rank, does the fight over on ESPN, and takes the fight to their champion and knocks him out in that final round. That had a little bit of everything for me. And I really, really, really wanted to make that my fight of the year, but I got to go with you. Usyk Fury won. That was such a huge event. It had kind of similar swings in momentum. First 6-7 rounds, you could certainly see the fight being scored for Tyson Fury. The back half of the fight goes to Alexander Usyk. The 9th round having such drama where Tyson Fury is careening around the ring, pillar to post. You're looking at the ref, Mark Kaloy, saying, is he going to stop it? Is he going to stop it? The ref does not stop it. And, we wind up with a split decision that leads us into the rematch later in the year. That, again, like I thought with the Dubois-AJ fight, the magnitude of the moment matters. And having the first undisputed heavyweight championship fight in the 4-belt era, crowning the first undisputed champion since, the 1990s, that carries some weight to me. So I will give it, Sergio, to Usyk Fury 1 as well, but just by a hair over that tremendous fight between Raymond Ford and Otabek Kolmatov.
You forgot to mention in the four belt era. You can't. You got to throw in that extra belt.
I
We've
said
had.
four belt there. I said four belt
Okay,
there.
well, yeah, that's what made it special because it's so hard to come by. But yeah, but Raymond Ford, man, I love that fight. I actually just watched that fight because I was looking at that fight as well for Fight of the Year. So we're in unison here as far as where we're thinking because yes, that was an excellent fight, but you have to weigh the leverage of the heavyweight leverage and the 130 pound. It doesn't weigh the same. So yeah, man, you got to give it to the big boys.
All right. When we come back, we are going to list our top 5 fights that we want to see in 2025. All right, Sergio, 2024 was a good year for boxing. We got 2 fights between Alexander Usyk. We finally got Beterbiev versus Bivol. But let's turn the page here and talk about 2025 and the fights that we want to see in this new year. We're going to rattle off the 5 fights that we're looking forward to or hoping to see in 2025. I'll let you go first. Give me the top fight on your list that you want to see next year.
Well, it still has to do with Canelo Alvarez. He's still the pay-per-view pound for pound honcho. So I want to see Canelo Alvarez. He needs a B-side. He already cleared out 120 or 168. So I think he's going to have to go back to 175 against the monster and the Mexican monster, David Benavidez. I would love to see Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez. Can you imagine that fight, Cinco de Mayo or Mexican Independent Weekend between 2 guys with Mexican lineage? Doesn't get bigger and better than that. So that's my number 1 fight next year.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see that fight. I just wonder how much money it's going to take for Canelo Alvarez to get in the ring with Benavidez. He's made it clear that anything less than 9 figures is not going to get it done. So we'll see if the money can be put together for that fight. But I'm with you. That would be a fantastic fight. My number 1 fight is one that is a lot more makeable. And that is a rematch between Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. We all know what happened the first time around. One of the most dramatic fights of 2024 where Devin Haney was knocked down, 3 times in that fight, beat up pretty good by Ryan Garcia, winds up losing a split decision because he did do better than some people thought in the rounds he didn't get hurt and didn't get knocked down. Afterwards, of course, Ryan Garcia tested positive for Ostarine. The result is changed to a no contest, so Devin Haney still has that perfect record, and Ryan Garcia is still looking for that win. These 2 guys, there's no reason, Sergio, that they can't put this fight together and make it again for the second half of 2024. Ryan Garcia, promoted by Golden Boy. Devin Haney, promoted by Matchroom. That is a DAZN pay-per-view that you can put together. And if the reporting is true, and if what Oscar De La Hoya says is true, that the first fight did around 300,000 buys, I'm pretty sure they can triple that. And they can flirt with 1 million buys going into that rematch because the drama is going to be there. There's going to be so much talk during fight week, so much bad blood between Garcia and Haney, between Bill Haney and Oscar De La Hoya, all the baggage that comes with a fight like that. I would like to see both these guys in interim fights before they go into that rematch. But September, October of 2024, Garcia Haney Part 2, sign me up for that.
Yeah, I would love to see that rematch as well, but that one doesn't whet my appetite like another rematch that Ryan Garcia probably would want to have and we would all want to watch over that fight, and that's against Tank Davis. That fight would be just as big, if not bigger, and that one actually did do 1 million pay-per-view buys, so I'll do a lot more this time around. So yeah, the Haney fight is exciting. I would love to see that fight, but there's other ones on top of that. I mean, I would love to see Ryan Garcia with anyone. He's the A side between all these guys, against Tank, against Haney, against Teofimo or anyone else down the list, Boots Ennis. He's going to be the A side, and he's going to be the guy that's crazier as a fox. He's going to bring that social media following, and you don't know what he's going to do. He has the speed and the power, and he's so damn vulnerable to the chin. And you don't, yeah, I mean, it's a mess. It's chaotic when you're dealing with Ryan Garcia, but that's why we watch. It's like a train wreck. We can't keep our eyes off it.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's the A side against Tank. I think Tank is still the A side, still the bigger draw, still the proven pay-per-view guy, still the guy that has proven he can sell tickets no matter who he fights. So,
well, yeah, but let me. If he's the A side, how come Tank Davis hasn't done nowhere near a pay-per-view buy like that one with Ryan Garcia? He hasn't even got close to doing anything as spectacular and big that he did with Ryan. Why is that?
well, you need a dance partner to do a big pay-per-view number. The flip
Ryan
side,
Garcia
that's true.
didn't. Ryan Garcia didn't need a dance partner. He did it with Haney.
He did less than 300,000 buys. You're calling that a rousing success.
It
No,
was one of the best fights of the year, and people
okay,
want to
but
see it again.
money talks and live gates talk too, Sergio. And Tank Davis is routinely doing $4 or $5 million gates. That's something that Ryan hasn't quite gotten to just yet. But it doesn't matter because I don't think a rematch between those two is going to happen. Ryan Garcia is getting too big physically for Tank Davis. He's going to be at 147 in his next fight. I think him and Devin makes a lot of sense. I've seen, with some talk about Devin Haney against Rolly Romero, early next year. I kind of like that fight. Rolly talks a lot. He's got a little bit of power. It's kind of a good appetizer or a build up for a Ryan Garcia fight. I've seen my good pal Blair the Flair Cobbs, taking on what I've been saying for a while now, and that he should be the one to fight Ryan Garcia at 147 in his next fight. I'd love to see both those guys in with those two opponents. I think both them end really well for Ryan and for Devin, and that gives them both momentum going into the second half of next year with their matchup. All right, give me the second one on your list. Are you going to tell me that Tank versus Ryan was on your list? Is that what number 2 is?
No, it was actually it's Boots versus Ryan Garcia. I would love to see Jaron Ennis actually stay at 147 and fight a legitimate 147 pounder in Ryan Garcia. So that's my first one on the list. I mean, I wanted to see Tank Davis against the champion, but it's not going to happen. So I wanted to see Ryan Garcia, who will step up and fight anybody, any champion. I would love to see him fight Boots.
Look, it's a good fight. If he does it, I'd like to see that happen after the Haney fight. I don't want to see anything ruin the Haney fight. And I think Boots might outbox Ryan, and that would take some of the shine off the Devin Haney fight. The Devin Haney fight does not need to be marinated much. Yeah, again, I think both those guys could use a comeback fight. Ryan's been suspended. Devin's been off. But beyond that, if they fight anyone else, it is a huge mistake. Huge mistake for the promoters, for both of them. They should go straight into that rematch in the fall of 2024. Number 2 on my list, though, Sergio, is one that has been on the books, and I want to see it put back on the books. And that is Shakur Stevenson against William Zepeda. That fight has been derailed a couple of times now. One for the first injury to Shakur Stevenson. Now we've got William Zepeda recovering from an injury. Shakur is going to be back against Floyd Schofield in February. I would imagine Zepeda comes back against somebody else, in the months that follow. Maybe it's a rematch against Tevin Farmer. There's been some talk about that. But again, second half of 2024, those two guys got to get in the ring because I love the style matchup, the activity of Zepeda, the accuracy and one-shot power of Shakur Stevenson. Give me Zepeda against Stevenson for the belt at 135. I think it's one of the best fights you can make in the lightweight division.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Can't hate on that fight. It's Southpaw versus Southpaw, two completely different left-handers. So yeah, stylistically, it'll make sense because Zepeda will force Shakur Stevens into a physical fight. It would be a hell of a fight. But no, I got another one for you. I like Bud. The fact that he cleaned out 140, Bud Crawford cleaned out 147. He went up to 154, beat the top dog there. He's everything great that we want, but he's 37 years old and he ran out of opponents. But there's a young opponent that hasn't got his opportunity, and that's Virgil Ortiz Jr. I think stylistically it'll be a train wreck. It'll be bombs away. And I think Bud Crawford, as we've seen with Madrimov, he needed to find a way to adjust to the size and the strength. He's going to have to do the exact same thing with a guy like Virgil. Put that fight in Texas somewhere. Virgil's Texas, a Texan, Cowboy Stadium. I mean, I think Bud deserves that. So Bud, Virgil Ortiz Jr.
Yeah, I like it. I don't see Bud doing it, because I think Bud has his eyes on some of that Saudi cash. And if he doesn't get it, I think it's far more likely we see him in title unification fights, something that gets him closer to becoming the undisputed champion at 154, a chance, however unlikely it may be, to become undisputed in 3 weight classes. And look, maybe Virgil can get his hands on a full title between now and then. But I think that would be the only thing that entices Bud Crawford into an Ortiz fight, unless there's huge Saudi money on the table for him to go and do it. My third fight is one that could take place over in Japan or could take place right here in the U.S., and that is an all-Japanese showdown between Naoya Inoue and Junto Nakatani. Naoya Inoue, of course, undisputed at 122 pounds. He's got a fight coming up against Sam Goodman, which will be like his 4th utterly meaningless title defense, a guy that is going to offer very little resistance in Sam Goodman, in a way is going to mow him down. Same thing with Nakatani, who's got a title defense of his own coming up. I think it's in February. These two guys are on a collision course. Both of them are undefeated. Both of them are power punchers. That would be a electric event at the Tokyo Dome in Japan. It would also be a huge event in Vegas. Like Top Rank, which co-promotes Inoue, has talked about bringing Inoue back to the U.S. for a huge fight. There's no bigger fight for Inoue right now than a showdown against Junto Nakatani. And Nakatani, even though he's 118 pounds, he's a big guy. Like, he would match up physically really well with Naoya Inoue. So, that's a fight that I know they're trying to marinate for a while longer, but it's cooked. It's there. It's ready. Let's go. Let's make Nakatani against Inoue. I don't care where it is. Personally, I'd love to see it here in the U.S. in Vegas. That'd be a huge event. If it's over in Japan, it's like the Super Bowl over there. So I just want to see that fight happen, Sergio. The two best small weight fighters over in Japan going at it. Can't miss. I want to see that fight.
That was my number 6. I would love to see it in Japan as well to do something special for them. But I could easily see that fight in Vegas as well, like you said, because there's a lot of Chinese and Japanese whales that come to Las Vegas, and that's like the fight central. So it can be an amazing electric night between two small giants and these Japanese superstars. And yeah, 118, Nakatani has been doing special things, and we know who's the man and the monster at 122. I think it's a matter of time before that explosion. Yeah, it's a monster fight either way or wherever you have it. I would love to see that fight.
All right, I want to throw my fourth one at you now, and that is Virgil Ortiz. And not Virgil against Bud Crawford, but Virgil against Boots Ennis. And look, this is a fight that's been talked about for many years now. Both of them top young contenders at 147. Ortiz made the jump up to 154. We thought for a couple of days, Sergio, we were going to get Boots against Ortiz in Saudi at 154. All that fell apart. Boots Ennis has taken a pretty good beating as a result of that. But they're both young enough that this fight can and should be put back together before the end of the year. If Boots really wants to go out and unify the titles to officially win a world title against someone like Amanta Stanionis, fine, go ahead. I think Virgil's going to have a hell of a time with Madrimov. I've been saying that for a while now. That's going to be a very tough fight for him. But either way, I want to see those two guys go at it at 154. Virgil against Boots. You talk about bombs away. Virgil is a physical fighter at 47 or 54. And we have seen Boots, a little more vulnerable in his last couple of fights, against Avanesian and against that rematch against Chugadzian. I think that is a tremendous fight. Whether it's in the U.S., in Philly, in Texas, in Saudi Arabia, I don't care. Make that fight happen. That's the fourth one on my list.
Well, on mine, I'm going to have to go with one that we've been wanting to see for several years. And for some reason, it just, doesn't happen, whether it's money, whether it's politics, whether it's the sanctioning. But I still want to see Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua at Wembley. I mean, these are two big fighters that are still two of the biggest stars at heavyweight. They're just not the number one guy, but they could fight for number 2 or 3. I mean, it's still going to sell out. They're still popular. You can't beat, someone that's popular. Danny Dubois may be a champion right now, but he won't sell out Wembley without one of these two guys. So that just shows the heaviness that their name brings. Joshua's vulnerable. He's been stopped. Now Tyson Fury's been beat back to back. I would love to see that fight still, man. I mean, it's a fight that people will still pay for. It will still do great numbers pay-per-view, and it's makeable now that they're not so hot commodities and they kind of took a step back in pay. Now it's more makeable between the promoters and networks. So, yeah, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua whets my appetite, Chris Mannix.
Yeah, there will be criticism if and when that fight is made because of where both are in their respective careers. Forget the Fury Usyk matchups. Like, those were good fights, competitive fights. At least the first one, very competitive fight. AJ getting obliterated by Dubois and kind of acting like that didn't happen is a little weird to me, but I disagree, or I agree with everything you said about the marketability of it. It still sells out Wembley Stadium. It still probably does close to or over 1 million pay-per-view buys in the UK. It's disappointing that it's not what it was a couple of years ago when, AJ was in a position to face him before he fought Usyk, and Fury was coming off that second fight against Deontay Wilder. But I guess better late than never kind of does apply here. Like if both those guys are going to continue their careers, I'd rather see them face each other, get it over with. And look, the winner of that fight will have a pretty strong mandate to go up against Usyk once again. We think Usyk's probably going to fight Daniel Dubois sometime in the summer if Dubois gets through Joseph Parker. The winner of AJ against Fury over in the UK would be against Usyk would be a big event. So yeah, I'm there for it. It's just it'll always be in the back of my mind, just like with Pacquiao against Mayweather. Like what could it have been 3 years earlier when both these guys were at their respective peaks? Same thing with AJ and Deontay Wilder. What could that have been if those two guys got in the ring?
Same thing with Chocolatito and why he's not on the list with Bam Rodriguez, because he's not at the absolute peak anymore. He's a legend. He's one of the all-time, great fighters in the last 20, 25 years, but we know who's going to win that fight. That's just what happens when you wear out your welcome as champion and you take a couple of knockout losses. It's not there anymore and it's lost its expiration date.
I did, you mentioned Chocolatito. I did think it was interesting when, I believe it was Dan Rayfield that first reported this, that Chocolatito is eyeing a world title fight against, I don't want to butcher his first name, but Cafu is his last name, the title holder at 115, wants to fight him in his home country of Nicaragua. If he can beat Cafu, and I don't know much about this guy, like he has that one win over in Japan where he won his version of the title. But if Chocolatito can win that fight, that makes a Bam Rodriguez fight a lot more interesting because Bam, I believe, is going to eyeball the winner of this Ioka Puma Martinez fight for the first quarter of next year. If Chocolatito wins that belt and all of a sudden Chocolatito against Bam becomes a unification fight, it's a risk. Chocolatito might be washed, but if he winds up beating Cafu, hey, that makes that fight against Bam even bigger. The last one on my list, and it's not a fight I can describe yet because it's two winners, right? And that is the winner of David Benavidez against David Morrell against the winner of Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. Like, I'm with you. We talked earlier. Love to see Benavidez against Canelo, but unless something changes, it doesn't seem like that fight is going to happen. I think far more likely is the winner of these two fights, both of which are going to happen in February. I think it's far more likely those two get into the ring because Benavidez has shown that he'll fight anyone, any place, anytime. Guys like Beterbiev and Bivol, who are in the later stages of their career, particularly Beterbiev, they're finally making some money now. Like this is their opportunity. So if Turki Al-Sheikh comes in and says, I want Benavidez against the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol, which I think he does want, that's a fight you can make for June or July of this year. Or you can even punt it down the road to the next Riyadh season in 2025. That's a big event, Sergio. And that's a bombs away type of fight. Whether it's Beterbiev or Bivol, whether it's Morrell or Benavidez, that's a tremendous fight at 175 pounds. That would be a huge fight for me in 2025.
Yeah, of course. When you're dealing with David Benavidez, the Mexican monster, put him in against anybody, and against a fighter like Bivol and anyone else that's a top dog at 175, it's gonna be great. But I still believe that Benavidez is not really a legitimate puncher at 175, and guys that have been naturally at light heavyweight are gonna have the upper hand on him, especially if they got the footwork of a Bivol, the power of a Beterbiev, and so on. So that's the reason, that's not the one that really gets me. I like to put fights that really bring something to a exotic location that's for a world championship that's everybody's it's gonna be put butts in seats and it's gonna be historic. So like for me, fights like, Alexander Usyk going to Riyadh and Usyk going to, like, say, China to fight a Jile Zhang, or Daniel Dubois going to the Congo and fighting Martin Bakoli. Those are the ones that really are sexy to me, man, because it's historic. They're historic in these locations where they really don't get these championship fights. So that's why when we talk about Monster Inoue and Ioka in Japan, to Americans, it might not be everything, but on the international level, it's all eyes on boxing with one of the best pound for pound fighters fighting there. So I think they need to take it back to their home country, and I want to see more of it.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. Like, some of the great fights in boxing history, particularly heavyweight fights, have been on foreign soil. The Thrilla in Manila, the Rumble in the Jungle, these were all off of U.S. The greatest upset, arguably, in boxing history, Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas. Where was that? Over in Japan? So Yeah, we've gotten away from that in recent years as casinos in the U.S. have become the dominant presence when it comes to putting on big fights. Now you've got Saudi Arabia stepping in with Riyadh season. So, look, I'm with you there. Give me more of that. I do disagree on the whole, like, is Benavidez a puncher at 175? He's had one fight in this weight class, and he was a huge 168-pounder. I don't know how you can say just because he didn't knock out Alexander Vostok in a fight that even he admitted afterwards he'd been dealing with some health issues, particularly to his hand going into that fight. I don't think you can dismiss him as a puncher. Yes, Beterbiev is a big-time puncher. I don't know if Bivol's a big-time puncher at 175. He's got good footwork, like you said, but I don't know how heavy-handed he is. And I think Benavidez physically is going to be bigger than both, when they square off in the ring. So if Benavidez gets through Morrell, and we're both readily acknowledging that's a very tough fight, but if he gets through David Morrell, give me that winner. And look, it probably only happens if Beterbiev wins. If Bivol wins, I would imagine they're going to try to make a trilogy fight for the fall or winter of 2025. But if Beterbiev wins, hard to find better action fights, Sergio, than Benavidez against Beterbiev. You get the guy with that. They both kind of have that same kind of knockout power, don't they? Where it's not one shot. It's like, let me hit you with a 5 or a 6-piece combination, and that's going to put you down. Benavidez probably has an edge when it comes to hand speed and activity. Beterbiev, blunt power with those two fists. It's a great fight, man. Great fight at 175.
Man, I think that's Beterbiev would be more than a 2-1 favorite. I would say maybe 3-4-1 favorite against Benavidez.
It's gonna be 40 in a month.
I'm a huge fan of David Benavidez. I thought at 168 was a monster. At 175, he has to be moved in a careful fashion. You can't just put him up against monsters. You can't put him up against guys that are going to give him issues either with power, natural brute power like Beterbiev, or footwork and experience of Bivol. You have to calculate him. Like, for instance, if Benavidez wants to become the best at 175, he has to fight guys that are coming up in weight, or guys that are like Canelo. Canelo's fought at 175. Maybe Canelo can bounce back up to light heavyweight and fight Benavidez at that weight. Stuff like that. But I wouldn't put him as a favorite against Beterbiev. Beterbiev is just, he has dynamite in those hands, and they're heavy hands. Yes, Benavidez will bring the speed. The speed won't be enough. And I think the technique will be on Beterbiev as well. The technique, the power. Yeah, it'll be destructive. I would watch it.
I'm glad this is our last show of the year, because you are closing our last show with, I think, what is your wildest take of 2024. That Beterbiev is too much for Benavidez, and he shouldn't take that fight because he needs a different type of opponent. If Benavidez is going to face Beterbiev, then he would have to go through Alexander Vostok, a former world champion who had only lost to Beterbiev in a fight that he was actually winning before getting knocked out against the prime Beterbiev. That was several years ago. Got knocked out in that fight. Goes the distance against Vostok in his first fight. His second fight will be against David Morrell, who's plenty big for 175. He was another guy that was big at 168. Top guy, former Cuban medalist, elite amateur, all those things. So you're telling me if he gets through Vostok and he gets through Morrell, that he should shy away from an undisputed championship fight against Artur Beterbiev because Artur Beterbiev is too dangerous. Am I getting that right?
If you can maneuver your way out of that fight, absolutely, Chris Mannix, because there's a pot of gold waiting for you by the name of Canelo Alvarez. That's who you want to actually strike down. That's who's going to bring the big money. Beterbiev is not the payday. Bivol's not the payday. Vostok's not the payday. None of these guys the payday. The Mexican monster got to this point undefeated. He's become a ticket seller. He's very popular in Vegas, in the Southern California area, in Phoenix. If you just be patient, he has the age. The age is on his side. Age is not on Beterbiev's side. So just age this guy out. Let this monster go out, and then you could be the top dog in reign for the next 5 years. That's how you use That's how you use your brain and take calculated risk to stay on top and remain relevant and extend your 15 minutes. That's how you do it.
Beterbiev is 4 years younger than you. How much more do you want to age this guy out? How much more time do you want to give him? He's had about 112 injuries over the last 3 years. You have to cross your fingers and hope he gets to a fight week without getting injured. and you want to age him out even more because you think this Canelo pot of gold is awaiting? We've waited years, Sergio, for Canelo. Why would Canelo want to fight Beterbiev fight Benavidez without a big win on Benavidez's resume? The way to get to Canelo Alvarez is to beat Artur Beterbiev and become the undisputed champion at 175. I bet Canelo would go for that fight then. Moreover, this idea that there's not real money in it to fight against Beterbiev, there's probably $10 million in it. Like, how much more money do you want to fight an Artur Beterbiev? You are crazy, absolutely crazy, for suggesting that Benavidez should somehow veer his way out of a Beterbiev matchup because maybe, cross your fingers, Canelo Alvarez wakes up the day after Cinco de Mayo and says, you know what? Benavidez is a good idea. Crazy take. Crazy take.
First of all, let me just unpack all that. He's 4 years younger than us. Me and you are the same age, just because you got white hair and I don't, all right? So 4 years younger than us, Chris Mannix. And the thing about, well, you didn't tell me about $10 million. Shit, for $10 million, I'll come back and fight Beterbiev right now. So yeah, if it's $10 million, then fight whoever you want anywhere in the world. But I don't think it's going to be that much money. I really don't. I think it's going to be, 3-4 million, which is still great money, but not for the brutal, traumatic beatdown or fight that you're gonna have with a Beterbiev. You got to be careful, man. Those fights like that change. They could change your health. They could change your health. So if you just tranquilo, paciencia, just take your time. You're the Mexican monster. You're gonna work. And you talk about Canelo, making a decision. That's what he did with Caleb Plant. Plant didn't have anybody of any kind of relevance. He just had a belt.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He had the belt. He had the fourth and final belt. That's why Caleb Plant got the fight.
You just told me your argument, Chris. Your argument is that Benavidez hasn't beaten anybody. Yes, he has. He's already beaten Plant and a Durrell. Plant, on the other hand, only had Uzcategui on his resume before he cashed in that $10 million Canelo paycheck.
Because he had a belt. He had a belt. That's the only reason Canelo fought him. It was the fourth and final piece of the 168-pound championship, and he wanted to go undefeated. This is a wackadoo take. By the way, 2-1 favorite, maybe, even if I agree with you, but there would be bigger upsets than David Benavidez beating Artur Beterbiev. David Benavidez is a monster, like a monster. At 68 or 75, he would have to go to war to beat Beterbiev, but we've seen Beterbiev hurt before. We've seen him knocked down before. He's not this infallible guy that can't be beaten. Beterbiev would be like, I think, 13 years older than Benavidez going into that fight, but sure, let's age him out a little bit more. Let's wait until Artur Beterbiev is in a nursing home to make a fight with him against David Benavidez. Let's wait that long, Sergio, to make something like that happen, because that seems to be your take on all this, that he's too good and he should be patient. What is it? Tranquilo. Age him out, man. Let's age him out. Let him age a few more years. No big deal.
You sound like Oscar De La Hoya now. And don't patronize me, all right? I don't like that tone in your voice. Don't patronize me. I understand. Tell me you need to understand what I'm saying. Look, aging them out, it happens all the time in boxing. Some of the greatest fighters in the world age out the other ones. Your favorite fighters have aged out certain fighters, all right? From Ali to De La Hoya to Sugar Ray Leonard to Roberto Duran. Everyone has an aged out champion that just is on your resume. That's just the way it is. It's the law of the land. So I think that's what should happen with Benavidez and this monster in Beterbiev that you want him to face, or anyone that faces Beterbiev. I just think he's that dangerous. He's the most dangerous fighter in boxing, is Artur Beterbiev. Name someone else who's more dangerous.
I don't disagree that he's dangerous.
Name one fighter that's more dangerous than Beterbiev.
I mean, at different weights, you can name guys like Inoue's.
Inoue, yeah, but Inoue's undisputed, so it's worth that risk.
So is Beterbiev.
Beterbiev is finally undisputed because of this Bivol fight that I thought Bivol won. But let the rematch happen again, and if you can beat Bivol convincingly, then maybe you're talking. Maybe it's a different story. But for right now, we got to see the second. We got to see the second fight with Bivol and Beterbiev. I think Bivol beats him this time around. I think they give it to him this time around.
I can't get over you wanting to age out a 40-year-old. Can't get over that. He's going to be 40 years old next month, and you want to age him out even more. When did you retire? 38? Oh, how old were you when your last fight happened?
38 years old, and it felt like I was 40, because my legs weren't there anymore. So yeah.
Neither are Beterbiev's. His body has been surgically repaired like 5 times in the last 5
Yeah,
years.
but I didn't have the power of Beterbiev. So let's just drop this already, because you're not gonna see my point. But Beterbiev is a wrecking ball, and you need to tread lightly whenever you're gonna be considering fighting him, especially if you're moving up in weight. Because Benavidez, mark my words, is not a monster at 175.
All right. Well, we will let that take sit there until 2025. Sergio, Happy New Year to you and your family, and we'll be back with the new pod later in the week in 2025. So enjoy the holiday, my friend.